Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self proclaimed hip hop historian, and this is the 82nd episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip hop. So for me, I've had a similar experience with T.I.'s debut here that I kind of had with Get Rich or Die Trying and the Carter 3, where I think how you feel about these respective projects largely depends on where you grew up and how old you were when they came out. If you were around my age and grew up with these albums, then you probably view 50 Cent's debut as a massive cultural landmark moment, and it may be hard to wrap your head around how some older fans don't think it's a classic. Some people don't even think it's a good album at all, but on the other hand, I've seen polls where it wins against the most impressive debuts in the genre by a pretty wide margin. It illustrates how music can be perceived in vastly different ways depending on when and where you're hearing it. It also depends on the mindset you go in with. Because if you head into an album like trap music looking for the southern equivalent to MF Doom, you probably won't walk away having loved it. That isn't to say that T.I. isn't a witty, proficient, and talented writer and MC. I don't think the smash hits on this album like Rubber Band Man or 24s would be made better if they were more lyrically dense. Those songs don't really call for super heady verses. He tackled those tracks with the appropriate level of lyricism, which is why they blew up. But if you put Tip's second album through that 50 Cent Lil Wayne scope of what the albums meant when they came out and how much they influenced the next generation, you'll probably at least respect it, if not heavily enjoy it. Again, as usual, it isn't like this is mumble rap. While it may veer to the materialistic side at times, it's padded with plenty of emotional and personal anecdotes. The money, women, and cars he talks about clearly came from hard work and suffering, and I think it's at least partially why T.I. used to be referred to as the Jay-Z of the South. I'm sure it also has a lot to do with status, as Tip was the closest thing they had to a true superstar at this time who checked every required box. He had grand, full production that ranged from up-tempo bangers to more slow and patient tracks, which allowed him to dive into all sorts of themes, be it his kids, failed relationships, racism and discrimination, or hustling to make ends meet and provide for your loved ones. His story is pretty inspiring, as T.I. has long been a figure of success, be it through his hit songs and musical longevity, or his acting and entrepreneurial ventures. This could make it hard to believe that his first album was a commercial flop, especially since it featured many of the same elements his following LP trap music would have. However, it kinda was a flop, as his debut I'm Serious didn't chart anywhere on the top 200, and I believe it didn't even have one song chart, which led to the label basically telling him to just go back to the drawing board and have Tip start a new album from scratch. Obviously, this ultimately worked out since his follow-up was a massive moment and even helped coin a term that's been used constantly in hip-hop to this day, but it's a shame I'm Serious got swept under the rug, as the track What's Your Name features one of my favorite Neptune's beats ever. Tip has even mentioned how he was so discouraged from the failure that he considered quitting, but obviously now he has the luxury of looking back and laughing at how bad a choice that would have been and how important it was for him to persevere. Since this was the time the South was starting to come out of its crunk phase, there are certain sounds and moments that are slightly dated, but honestly for me they come off as more nostalgic than they do corny or cringy. I think it helps that they're pretty few and far between, and the rest of the instrumentals range in tempos and styles as to give T.I. the room to expand this world and show different flavors of the South. Being a real hip hop fan himself allows him to reference and gain inspiration from the Atlanta pioneers before him while still appealing to the pop sensibilities that the casual fan enjoyed. This is also emphasized through the blend of features he recruited for guest appearances like Mac Boney, Jazzy Faye, Bun B of UGK fame, as well as 8 Ball and MJG, who all come together for the monster posse cut Bezel. While Tip has a great ear for beats on here, you really have to thank the producers who put them together, some of which include DJ Tube, David Banner, Jazzy Faye once again, and Kanye West. Trap music is one of the very few albums from this era that's able to be braggadocious and still come off as an underdog story opposed to some rich guy rubbing his wealth in your face. It's also impressive how he's able to create and stick to a theme for most of the tracks here, and it helps him cover more space and serves as a break from just money and cars. A song like Doing My Job does a fantastic job of painting a picture of how people in these underprivileged areas may not view their situation the same as someone from the outside. Someone looking in only sees the crime and the negative result, but they practically never actually see the part where the dude is a child with no role models or tools to survive. It's easy to view dealing drugs as some fun luxury that people pick instead of quote unquote real jobs when you've never actually been in a position where it comes down to deal drugs or you and your siblings don't eat because dad's in prison and mom's on the needle. He still acknowledges his own faults and mistakes and that he's trying to be better and doesn't want to rely on dope dealing. It's a classic example of something I always talk about, where rapping about your real life circumstances can often be misperceived as promoting the topic. If you actually comb through an album like this, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a line where they're actually telling you drugs and crime is positive and worth doing, and virtually any album that does directly tell kids to try drugs is usually tongue in cheek, over the top commentary, or they're just trying to be edgy. You even get a full internal back and forth with T.I. versus Tip, where both sides of his ego are having this debate over what the right path in life is, and it's a smart way of taking the fire away from your critics by beating them to the punch and breaking yourself down. My top three favorite tracks for this one would probably have to be I Can't Quit, Look What I Got, and Long Live the Game. I already mentioned the biggest songs on here, so I'm going to skip over those, but I still have a stack of honorable mentions, including Be Easy, No More Talk, Let Me Tell You Something, Bezel, King of the South, and Be Better Than Me. Thank you for watching my 80-second video. Next time, we're going to step back into the world of instrumental hip hop, so check that out if you want to see what that one is. And if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off of this Atlanta milestone are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? All right.